really big projects that individual property owners, even of a large scale, like a LA Live, AG, or McGuire property, couldn't do by themselves. That could really sort of spread the wealth throughout downtown, and that streetcar became that. And when we looked at partners, one of the very first partners we looked at was Portland, because Portland had been the most successful. The folks that did the Pearl District in Portland are the same exact folks who did South Park, who did the South Version. So we started working very closely with them. And as we worked with them, they said the very first thing you need to do is literally just take a trip up there. If you get on it, if you ride it, if you touch it, if you feel it, people will understand it. And the other thing that they said is realize the very first phase that you do has to be simple and realistic. And once you get that phase up and running, all the rest of it sort of takes care of itself. So a lot of the concerns we have often is, why does it go to Union Station? Why doesn't it go to Chinatown? Why does it go to all these other places? That's part of the master plan, but you start at one place, and then you can have feeder places, feeder lines that go all of this. So what we try to do is really keep it to a manageable size. I think it's 4 miles. It's about $100 million. And the first phase does become expensive because you have to do the maintenance facilities and you have to buy your cars. And once you get that initial part. But if you look at the subway being about $500 million a mile, if you look at light rail being about $250, $300 million a mile, and then you look at the streetcar being like $25 million a mile, you can really see how the streetcar can have huge ridership. We're talking about 20,000 riders on the streetcar, which is about the same as what the Gold Line in Pasadena has. And the Gold Line in Pasadena was like 650 million. So for a lot less, you can get the same amount of riders circulating through downtown. And it only takes once for you to park in a downtown building where it's $38 for 2.5 hours, or $85 for a parking ticket, or get your car towed, and you realize that a streetcar getting around makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and there's obviously, I mean, I could go on and on and on about the benefits and the challenges, and there's pros and cons to everything, and we're not naive enough to think that that's not the case. I mean, this is no it's no panacea or some perfect solution, but I think given where we're at in Los Angeles, I think we all know that traffic congestion is overwhelming, and there has to be a better way. We have moved beyond what we used to be, and we have to come up with many solutions to fix that. And it isn't just all about transit. Even though we're in the Transit Coalition meeting, I mean, we all know that you're not going to get rid of all that. You have to come up with creative solutions that help everybody, both people with automobiles, but this is all part of a greater solution to really the travel problem in Los Angeles, as well as I think obviously many other tangential issues like sustainability and walkability, and I'm pretty passionate about a lot of other things, which is kind of health and education and a lot of things that make cities. And I think when you start to investigate all those things and tie them together, you see where the core, the basics of how we build our real estate, and how we get to and fro the places that we're going really matter to how we live our lives and how we interact as a community. So I'm happy to talk to anybody offline or any other time about anything like that, but why don't we open it up to questions now, and I'll do my best to answer. First hand was back. Oh, sorry.
Starting with Bob.
I'm curious, as an old-time transit rider in LA, riding the R car in a long time, if you're going to First Street, you're kind of cutting off the federal courthouses, the music center, the Hall of Administration. It's a fair walk to some of those. Is First really your desirable northern end of the line?
It's always a tough battle to choose where you end it, because there's always going to be something else that you're missing. There's always going to be something else that you pick up. Some are significant because they have riders, and what you're always balancing is cost versus the more you extend it out, the more you have to pay. You're also ridership time or throughput time also starts to get affected. So then it's the question of, well, how long do you want to ride it around? Because remember, our streetcar only runs one way on one street. It doesn't go both directions, and there isn't, you don't have the money to just run a bunch of cars around all the time to have 5-minute headways. It just, you don't have the funds to do that. So it's a delicate balance of cost and throughput time and trying to pick everything up. We decided on First Street because you're close. You know, you get right almost to the corner of the music center. You're just really a block away from a lot of the, you know, the great park, you know, that's happening over there and all the federal courthouse stuff. And it's kind of that block, I think, is what we all know, is it where people will at least walk that, and after that it becomes a question. So we just thought that First was a logical place to pick most of that up and not have to extend the line over to Temple.
With the line on First, at Grand, you get MoCA, you get the new Broden Museum, you get Disney Concert Hall, you do get the Music Center, you get the whole Grand project in the Civic Center Plaza, and then it goes down Broadway. So other than going over to Temple, you access all of Bunker Hill.
You get most of it. I think you were next.
Yeah, I kind of have two questions. Okay, first part of my question, my name is Whitman, by the way. Okay, my first part of the question is, when I heard you mention that, you know, we should get property owners along the streetcar line to chip in and maybe, you know, pay some of this cost for the streetcar line.
Yeah.
But, you know, given this current economic climate, I still find that probably, you know, most of the property owners would have a hard time getting sold on this. So what I'm thinking is maybe, you know, that they can offer some kind of incentive where, like, you know, property owners who do pay extra taxes for this line can get, like, maybe extra density bonuses. Maybe they can build more density, or like they can have like less parking requirements. One of the biggest problems with developing on Broadway is the parking requirements are in LA are so car generous that, you know, there's not, you know, they can't add any, you know, residential units without having to, you know, increase parking if they don't have space for them.
Okay, is that both questions?
And number two, also, last weekend I've also had a chance to go down to the Fashion District on Santee Alley. I didn't hear you mention that as a possible location for a streetcar route to go through the Fashion District, which has throngs of people.
Yeah.
Such a great pedestrian environment.
Okay, so first question is a good one. We actually are looking at a lot of those items. We think that most other cities that have done streetcars have shown there's some type of a zoning or benefit to it. So we're looking at some of that right now along with the city as to how that may work. It really probably would be parking is the key. The issue with downtown is most of downtown has plenty of FAR. Most of it is more than you could build, quite frankly. I mean, just given the cost limitations to it. So FAR isn't a big advantage. Neither is density, frankly, because you've got a lot of density. So the real kind of benefit comes from perhaps parking. But again, I think if you think about the real benefit comes from what it does to your business or what business is in there. One of the best examples I can give is, you know, you've got, let's say what the ridership is. Russ was a little bit, you know, he's always a hard charge. It's probably more like 10,000 people a day instead of 20. But let's say you've got 10,000 riders a day, eyeballs that are coming in front of your restaurant or your business. Now, you've got to kind of logically think that if a new business was coming down into downtown, they would likely want to be located along or very near those guaranteed every single day, 365 days a year, you know, stream of potential customers that are coming in. So you should be able to charge a little bit higher rent for that. Well, anybody who knows real estate knows that goes to the bottom line and the cash flow, and it translates to value. And so even if you don't offer incentives, we think that there's a very, very strong position that you will receive a value increase. And if we can figure out some incentives like a parking reduction or something else, all the better. So we're looking at it. The second answer as to where going into the Fashion District, again, you know, it gets back to, you know, where do you stop when you're trying to build places? We think the Fashion District's important. We get sort of close, at least, to the CalMart and all that. When you go down Broadway, you really, as Maine and Los Angeles kind of go over towards Broadway, they pinch off. So you're only a block or so away from CalMart, too. So you're at kind of, that's kind of the nexus of the Fashion District. That's a few over. But I think that's one of the areas that we could do an extension route later on. It makes a lot of sense is to run something down through over there and maybe go capture you know, the Arts District and some other places. So, yeah, I think it's a valid point that there's a lot of people that are over in the Fashion District.
Another thing